Alright, so Jamaica famous gang leader and juggler that goes by the name Christopher Dudus Coke is set to get an early release date from prison for good behavior and also participating in programs that deduct time from his sentence. So Christopher Dudus Coke was sentenced back in 2010 for the incursion that happened in Tivoli Gardens and also for drugs trafficking. And it's crazy because 69 civilians were killed that day and one member of the police force was also killed. And at the end of the day, they must say, oh, body cam is not needed. But if we had body cam, most of those civilians wouldn't have been killed because up to this day, parents and also family members are seeking justice for what happened back in 2010. And the next thing is, they said that Christopher Dudus Coke found God in prison. And it's crazy because I thought that God was in church. But apparently, God is behind the bars. And not to make joke about it, but when a walk is against the wall, I need somebody of a higher spirit or higher belief to believe in. That's when God comes in. You get me, I say? And I think the same thing with Vibes Cartel when he said that God is the greatest. He found God behind bars. But this goes to show that you don't need to get in trouble. You don't need to wait till you get in trouble to believe in God. You get me, I say?
Just check to make sure. I check these already. Those all secure and so on.
Remember the squad, that's only myself, so when I try to escape, that's me in custody and I was going to give up myself.
No, we're just trying to make sure that things are safe as well, okay?
Okay.
So please don't take offense. We're just trying to make sure that the place is of a certain standard and safe.
Okay.
Hence we don't have to worry and so on. That's the reason why.
Okay.
So you can just relax and understand we're doing what we can to make sure certain things, yeah?
Yeah, I need like how soon I can talk to my lawyer or something like that.
That's been looked after now.
Okay.
Someone else is looking after that. So you have to worry yourself. Well, you just have some more wives. David.
Alright, so this is probably one of the most stressful topic when talking about the incursion that happened back in 2010. A lot of parents, a lot of family members has lost loved one to this incursion. Some blaming the police force, some blaming Dudus, some blaming the prime minister. And this is a topic where nobody literally like to talk about or get reminded of because of what happened. And this episode is basically an update from the Gleaner/Observer, giving an update on the case of Christopher Dudus Coke. Alright, one of the baddest man from Jamaica is set to be released from prison soon, that goes by the name Christopher Dudus Coke. So he's set to be released from prison in the United States in almost 21 months after authorities sliced another year off his prison time. So this development comes from a popular pastor, Merrick Miller, a longtime friend of Coke family, said he has been told that this reputed show-post leader is participating in a religious-based and other programs in prison. Alright, so I know that he is spending time in the Word of God and growing in that area of his life. That's what I was told a couple years ago, Miller told the Gleaner yesterday, making reference to Coke. The new release date for Coke, who is 57, is January 29, 2028, according to update of the U.S. Bureau of Prison BOP website. This is the second time in nearly 50 months that Coke has had 1 year shaved off his prison time, likely for a good behavior, according to U.S. Department of Justice. Alright, so welcome back to another installment of Speaking Mind TV. And from today's episode, when you see the headlines and you see what we're talking about. So to support the channel, give this video a thumbs up and also comment your feedback, because I think prison is the best place to know God instead of church. You get me, I said, because Vibes Cartel has been going through the same scenario, being one of the most popular entertainers and one of the dons of Jamaica, as people put it. So Vibes Cartel also found God in prison, and Dudus Coke, one of the baddest man from Jamaica, also.
And take my son out of my mother out. And I can't come out. Who ain't gonna see my son? Murder! I can't can't take this no more. But me lock up too long now. Me lock up in the house like ostrich. Them said Dudus have me as ostrich, but a Bruce and the police them and destroy them have me like ostrich in the house. Them kill off the one we pick to them. Innocent.
God in prison. Alright, so last February, Coke release date was listed at January 25th, 2029, nearly 17 months earlier than his earlier July 4th, 2030 release date. BOP records show his successful participation in and completion of approved evidence-based reduction program and other productive activities, which also make him eligible for further reduction through earning time credits, DOJ previously said in response to questions submitted by the Gleaner. Coke is serving a 23-year prison sentence which was imposed in August 2011 when he pleaded guilty to one count of each racketeering conspiracy and to commit assault with dangerous weapon. He is being held at the Fort Dix Federation Correctional Institution in New Jersey, which has no bars, towers, or locks, according to its website. The BOP acknowledged that under the First Step Act, which was intact in the U.S. in 2018, incarcerated individuals earn time for good conduct, which is favored into their release date. Under subsequent amendments to the legislation, qualifying inmates are eligible for the maximum 54 days of their prison time for conducting for each of the sentence imposed to court. So the spokesman for the BOP yesterday declined to comment on the program Coke has participated in, explaining that it is forbidden for several reasons. For privacy, safety, and security reasons, we do not discuss the conditions of confinement for any individual in our custody, including program, the spokesman said in response to questions submitted by the Gleaner. However, according to agency website, it is provide progressive and humane treatment and service to federal inmates and implements programs that facilitate religious education, medical care, and mental health, and some areas covered by the program. So Miller, founding pastor of Fellowship Church in the St. Andrew, acknowledged that he had now spoken directly with the Coke family in about a year or two, but he said that from what he had heard, Coke was participating in several programs, some of them religious-based. That's my understanding, and that's very good. I trust that it will be an opportunity for his own life to find anchor in the source of life, independent relationship with God, so that he can give to the world. So Coke was arrested by the Jamaica Security Force back in June 2010 after he was found in a vehicle that was being driven by Miller, who has publicly said he was taking the former Tivoli Gardens strongman to the U.S. Embassy in the Kingston to surrender. The arrest ended weeks of mounting tension across Jamaica capital, triggered by the months-long delay by the then Bruce Colin-led government to the authorities' Coke extradition to the U.S. to face criminal charges. A month before his arrest, Coke mysteriously escaped his Tivoli Gardens stronghold after 2 days of fierce gun battles between the security force and the heavy armed thugs loyal to him. When the shooting ended, 69 civilians and one member of the Jamaica Defense Force were killed, what has been described as one of the darkest periods of Jamaica history. 69 civilians? Wow. So 69 civilians and one member of the Jamaica Defense Force were killed. What has been described as one of the darkest periods in Jamaica history. Alright, so based on the story, you guys have seen that Christopher Dudus, one of the most notorious dons, gangster, murderer, killer, whatever you want to call him. You know, he basically get time shaved off from his sentence, and he will be coming home soon. So I'm wanting to comment on the feedback on what you think about the scenario. And it's crazy. I never remember that it was so many people that got killed. You get me? I say, imagine 69 people getting killed, and one police getting killed. That's crazy, bro. And it's crazy because they're saying that they're basically saying that body cams doesn't make sense, and this is one of those scenario where body cams would have come in handy, because based from the whole Christopher Dudus Coke scenarios, I've heard that a lot of men were killed innocently on that day. You get me? And if there was body cams, that would have shown us what really happened that day. But I guess Jamaica is a very corrupt place, you know. And as I've said before, police are the biggest gang members, and the politicians are the biggest dons. You get me? Because they call the shots, and whether or not we like it, or whether or not we have something to object about, it doesn't make a difference, because it's the same for the same. Nothing's not going to change. You get me? And that's why I think that politicians, election doesn't make a difference, bro. Because either way, if you elected the opposition leader, or if you re-elected prime minister, it doesn't make a sense. It doesn't make a difference, because all of them was friends. Basically, them do about the same thing over and over and over and over again. So it doesn't really matter who really got elected. You get me? But you know, that's the world that we're living in. You know, I wish that the people them say, "Oh, the poor lives with us," but instead of them seeing that the poor lives with us, it's like they're so easily manipulated. They're so easily sell out, you know, and they're so fool and dunce and stupid that them don't think before them do things. Because if you are basically running behind politician, and you hardly see that politician in the environment or the community that you were elected to run, and then on election day all on around back him, that's crazy, bro. I can never understand it, bro. You get me? I can never really understand that, bro. But as I said before, it's a world that we're living in.
Them to ask us how we feel right now. The world's #1 killer is stress. Not gunshot wound, not AIDS. Stress. That's what we're under right now.
The way the security forces are dealing with the people inside here, I believe that the people are being restrained from their constitutional right, and that is not so. It should not be like that. The people in Tivoli Gardens are being treated like hostage. We are not hostage. We are human beings like everybody else outside here. How do you categorize the garrison? What is the characteristic of garrison? Is it that the characteristics of the uptown neighborhood is different from the garrison? Oh no, I don't think so. I think that we are also have a right. Is it that the poor could find a way to come out of Tivoli Gardens? They will. But guess what? To be poor is a crime. And I'm saying to the Prime Minister that it is full time that you do something about this, because the people down here, they need help and they need you to intervene. God bless you in Jesus' name.